Hey friends, this is the Mrs. Wolfie from our Half Acre Homestead, and today we're going to make a marble pound style cake, or marble style pound cake. I'm not sure which way you pronounce it, but I'm going to use my lovely bundt pan that my mother-in-law got me for Christmas because I really like that pan. And what you're going to need is you're going to need 3.5 cups flour. Now this is my oven canned flour and it has whole wheat in it, so I'm going to sift it because it does have some lumps. You're going to need a bit of salt. You're going to need a cup of sugar, a cup of milk, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, vanilla extract, 4 wonderfully fresh eggs, and some cocoa powder. Oh, and 1 cup of butter. Let's go ahead and start. Now what I want to do first is I want to sift my flour to get a lot of the bran out of it. And also to break up any stray lumps from oven canning, because it does come out cakey when you oven can. All right, let's start. That's all of it. I can get all of it in there. Oops, almost all of it. And we're going to put in, let's start this bit of sifting here first. Maybe I overfilled it. And let's add our 2 teaspoons of baking powder. This is my homemade baking powder. So we're going to test run it too. And we're going to put in our pinch of salt. Alright, let's get, while we're sifting, let's get our 1 cup of butter into the cowgirl here. Lock her down. Let's put her on stir and add our sugar. I'm going to put my teaspoon or 2 of vanilla right in my milk. While our butter and sugar is creaming, let's sift our flour and our salt and our baking powder together. Alrighty. Let's start putting our eggs in. 1, and we're going to turn this up. 2, 3, 4. And at this point, I think I'm going to change over to the whisk. Lock her down, and let's get her to whipping. I'm going to turn her up so she'll really whip up those egg whites and the sugar and the butter. Let's start putting in our flour with our baking powder and salt in there. And as you do this, as it gets thicker, you're going to alternate by adding your milk as well. And the last of our milk and vanilla. Alrighty. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take half the batter and put it in this bowl. Approximately half the batter. It's not rocket science. You don't really have to. But in this case, it's not difficult. You just divide the batter in half. And put the cowgirl back on. Back down, lock her into place, and this is where we add our 1/4 cup of cocoa. Now this is a 1/3 of a cup measure, so I'm just going to use a little bit less. I'm just going to pop that in there. Let that do its thing. And I'm going to butter my pan and get my other stuff ready, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, now what we're going to do is we have our lightly buttered bundt pan, we have our chocolate cake and our regular cake. I have a handful of milk chocolate chips, and I'm just going to, you don't have to do this, I'm just sprinkling them into the bottom of the pan. And first off, we're going to take our chocolate cake. We're just going to start popping it into different places in the pan. So here's our white cake, and I guess I did more chocolate than white. But we're just going to fill in the holes with the white cake. I'm going to give this one good bang on the counter, or two. What this does is it takes air pockets out of your cake. Then I'm going to take this plastic knife, and I'm going to start at one side in the center, and I'm just going to drag it as I turn the pan. And then I'm going to work it towards the outside and drag it one more time. You don't want to do it too much or you'll end up with tan colored cake. But hopefully this is an indication of how our cake's going to look. This is going into a 350 degree oven for 1 hour. And we will see you when this comes out of the oven. You know what, folks? Don't make sure you really butter this well. This is this cake pan my mother-in-law gave me for Christmas. And even though I buttered it, the very first time I used it, it's the pound cake slipped right out of the pan. But this one, this time, it's almost like the non-stick coating didn't work as well. I'm just going to slip the pan back on, and hopefully it'll hold together as it cools. Darn. It's not a fail, it's just a breakage.
Just a sliver.
Just a sliver of cake?
Yeah.
Look, it broke coming out of the pan. How sliver is a sliver?
Where'd the milk go? Oh, it's in the top. Just a sliver.
Oh, it's falling apart. You can wrap that in your lunch tomorrow. It's a little dry.
A little dry, huh? You dunk it in milk and make it moist.
What are you going to do next? Go, water! Angus, you want a little piece of cake?
Aren't you doing a program on learning from your mistakes?
I think your Tylenol has gone to your head.
It is dry. Alright, get that out of my face. You want me to lie?
This is the Mrs. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying, obviously Wolfie's still delirious from the flu. Alright folks, as you saw last night, Wolfie said my cake was too dry. So I'm going to fix it. I'm going to turn this into a sweetbread pudding. And what I've done is I've buttered my bundt pan again, and I've put it in a pan of warm water because it's going to go in the oven like that. I'm going to do my absolute utmost to moisten this up. And all we're going to do is we're going to take about a half a cup of cream. Okay, maybe a cup. We'll set the old cowgirl on to stir, well, maybe on to two. And I'm going to make like a sweetbread pudding, because I'll be darned if all that work for that cake is going to go to waste. So I have about half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of cream and 2 eggs in there. And oh, by the way, if you remember, just because it was dry, it didn't stop most of it from getting eaten. I had to hide it so I could do this. So he might have thought he was being funny, but I'm going to have the last laugh. Now I'm going to put in, I don't know, 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And basically, we're just going to start throwing the cake in here. Well, maybe I should break it up a bit. There we go. Now, if it's not moist enough, then we'll just add a little bit more cream. A little bit more brown sugar. So I'm going to say 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Another splash of... I was darned if the pigs were going to get this. Turn off the cowgirl. Oh, that's lovely. And when I'm done baking this, I'm going to make a caramel sauce for it. And we'll just see what Wolfie has to say about this dessert. Now, I buttered my bundt pan. And once again, I'm going to add this to the pan. I'm going to kind of press it in evenly throughout, just like that. And we are going to bake this in the pan of water. We're going to put this in the pan of water, right in the oven. Now, just to be on the safe side, because I'm not going to go through this "it's dry" thing twice. I'm just going to cover this pan with some tin foil. We're going to pop it in a 350-degree oven for about, I don't know, half an hour or so. All right, when this comes out of the oven, we'll be back. Now, I've taken our sweetbread pudding out of the oven, and I took the tin foil off because I realized that this funnel was pushing steam up inside, and this wasn't, it wasn't baking. It was baking, but it was way too moist. So now let's try and see what happens. Keep your fingers crossed, folks. I've done baked this cake twice. All right, let's just see what happens here. Oh, now look at that. Isn't that lovely? It's moist. Oh, yeah. Now, let's go ahead and make a caramel sauce for this lovely pudding. Let's move the kettle out of the way. Let's go ahead and make a caramel sauce for this lovely pudding. Okay, and like before, it's going to be real easy. A couple of tablespoons of butter. A little bit of corn syrup. We're going to use this bottle up eventually. Just we put a little bit of corn syrup in just to stop it from crystallizing. And a little brown sugar keeper there. A little bit of brown sugar, say 1/2 cup. And we just want to bring this up to a boil. All right, now, see that? It's like candy. And we are just going to start by pouring that all over top. Let him tell me it's dry this time. Isn't that lovely? Sweetbread pudding with caramel sauce. If he doesn't like this, I'll never bake him another dessert. All right. Let's see how Papa likes this cake. Oh, there was butter on that knife. Well, it can only enhance the flavor. This is you might want to fork, dear. Oh, here's a fork. This is like sweet bread pudding.
Very good.
Very good. Now, do you know what that is? That's the cake you dissed last night. I reground it in the KitchenAid, added some cream, some eggs, a little bit of brown sugar, and I rebaked it and made a caramel sauce. Is it better?
Second time's the charm.
All right. This is the Mrs. Wolfe from our half-acre homestead saying, guess what? He doesn't always give a thumbs up.